When I opened Mom's old laptop, the screen flickered once, then came alive. One email sat unsent in her drafts folder. Its subject line stopped my breath. "Help me before it's too late." I clicked, and there it was, in her own words. "Melissa is lying. I didn't change my will. They're drugging me. They made me sign papers. Please come. I'm scared." I stared at the screen, frozen. My sister had lied. My mother had begged. And now it was too late. Or maybe not. 12 hours earlier, I was standing under a cold New England sky burying the woman who raised me. The rain was relentless. Fitting, I thought, because nothing about this day felt right. The funeral was small, too small. No extended family, none of Mom's book club friends, not even a single nurse or aide from the hospice. Just Melissa and me, pretending not to hate each other in front of the coffin. We hadn't spoken much since I came home from Syria. I'm a palliative care nurse and a former combat medic. I'd offered to take care of Mom when she was diagnosed, but Melissa shut that down fast. "She already picked a facility," she said. "You've been gone for years. Let her have peace without the drama." But what Melissa called peace looked a lot like isolation. My calls went unanswered. Hospice staff always had excuses. "Your mother's not lucid today. She's resting heavily." She said no visitors. Now here we were, alone in the family house in Waltham. It felt sterile, almost staged. The shelves were rearranged, photos missing, furniture moved. "I kept it clean," Melissa said, too casually, "in case we need to sell it." That's when the man in the gray suit arrived. "I'm Brian Weber, your mother's estate attorney," he said. "She updated her will 6 weeks ago. Per her wishes, I'll read it now." My gut turned as I sat down. Melissa crossed her legs, sipping wine like she'd already won something. Brian read calmly. The house, the $378,000 0 cents in Mom's Fidelity account, the jewelry. All to Melissa. I wasn't mentioned once. "There's been a mistake," I said. "This isn't right." Melissa didn't flinch. "Mom made her choice. You were never around." "That's because you screened my calls and isolated her." She stood. "Maybe if you didn't disappear for half her life, you'd understand what Mom really wanted." After she left, I wandered to Mom's old desk. Her laptop was dusty, humming faintly. I powered it on. Something compelled me to check her email. That's when I found the draft. And my world cracked open. Before the morphine dulled her voice and clouded her memory, Mom used to call me every Sunday evening from the armchair in her sunroom, even when we disagreed on politics, my deployments, or how she coddled Melissa. She was still mine. The one who stitched my uniform patches, the one who sent protein bars to Syria. When she was diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer, I offered to come home immediately. "Let me take care of you," I told her. "I've done this before. You don't need a stranger." But Melissa shut it down. She's chosen a hospice facility in Newton, fully staffed. She wants peace, not a battlefield nurse. That was her excuse. Peace. But what followed didn't look like peace. My calls went unanswered. "She's resting. She's sedated. She doesn't want visitors." Hospice staff repeated Melissa's script. Melissa herself took over communication, saying, "Mom didn't want video calls, that she was tired, confused." I believed it for a while. I rationalized that I'd left after Dad died, that Melissa had stayed, but things didn't add up. A cousin's holiday card came back unopened. A neighbor hadn't seen Mom in months. When I sent birthday flowers, the delivery was rejected. "No such patient," the note said. Melissa brushed it off. "Paperwork error." I flew back once, unannounced, early spring. The hospice receptionist stiffened when I gave Mom's name. "She's not taking visitors," she said. Then Kevin, the administrator, appeared. "Your sister is her sole healthcare proxy. We must follow her instructions." I left shaken, staring at the beige walls of that building, wondering why a dying woman couldn't see her eldest daughter. I didn't know then that Melissa had replaced the old power of attorney with a new one, naming only herself. I didn't know she'd removed the 2017 will from our family lawyer's files and replaced it with a fresh draft created by a college friend. I just knew I'd been cut out, methodically and completely. When I called Mom, her voice sounded off, slurred, detached. Once she said, "I'm fine, I'm happy," but it felt like someone had told her to say it. Then silence. No more calls. Melissa's final message, "She's fading. I'll handle everything." And she did. After the funeral, I found Mom's hospice intake papers. Melissa had left them out carelessly. I skimmed them and froze. Signatures didn't match. Dosages of morphine increased steadily over 2 weeks, peaking just before death. It reeked of something more than negligence. I reached out to Diane Miller, a night nurse at Newton's Serenity. We'd crossed paths years ago at a palliative care conference. I remembered her for her strong ethics. When I asked about Mom, she hesitated. She was sweet, didn't deserve what happened. I pushed gently. She sighed. After Melissa took over as sole contact, orders changed. High meds, notes altered, some weren't even filed. I raised questions. Got reassigned the next week. That's when grief hardened into something colder. Not despair, not guilt, resolve. The first thing I did was open the hospice records. Melissa had left behind a packet of paperwork, no doubt confident that I wouldn't know how to read between the lines. She'd forgotten I spent years interpreting medication charts under gunfire. The morphine schedule told me more than words ever could. During the first week, doses were within expected bounds, but by day 12 the dosage spiked, almost tripled, with no accompanying behavioral notes, no psychiatric evaluations, no alternative interventions documented. The justification? Increased agitation. It was the kind of vague, lazy entry a nurse would never make unless instructed. In hospice care, especially in palliative cases, we don't sedate someone into silence unless something or someone is trying to keep them quiet. I reached out to Diane. We met at a roadside diner just outside Newton. Her eyes were tired, cautious. "Your mother didn't want more morphine," she said after a pause. She said it made her feel foggy, but the orders kept coming, signed by Dr. Evan Sherman. We never saw him, just faxes, emails, directives. When I flagged it, my shift was changed. My login credentials were reset, and I was told to drop it. The name rang a faint bell. Later that night, I searched medical license databases. No Dr. Evan Sherman existed in the state, but I found an Evan L. Sherman, expelled from residency in 2015 for falsifying prescription records. He wasn't a doctor. He was a consultant now, working with elder care facilities in what looked like a legal gray zone. One of those companies had recently acquired Newton's Serenity Hospice. It wasn't just Melissa. She had help. She was exploiting a system that already knew how to look the other way. I logged into Mom's Medicare account. Thankfully, her passwords were saved in the browser. I reviewed the EOBs from her final weeks. Over $34,000, 0 cents, had been billed in just 10 days. Spiritual counseling sessions, complex palliative assessments, daily mobility coaching, all services she never received, and all signed off by Sherman. Melissa had filed the authorizations as proxy. She wasn't just isolating Mom emotionally, she was financially gutting her. But I wasn't done. I checked property records next. The Waltham house, ours, the one we grew up in, had been quietly mortgaged in the form of a reverse loan, over $200,000, 0 cents extracted. 2 weeks later, Melissa purchased a Beacon Hill condo, paid in cash. In the files, I found a signature from Mom authorizing the transaction. It was familiar, but in the wrong way. It matched the one on the updated will, shaky, uneven, slanted at a 40-degree tilt, as if someone had guided her hand. I stared at the ink. I didn't need a forensic analyst. I had memories. And one more thing, a device I hadn't thought about in years. I'd installed a nanny cam in Mom's bedroom back when Dad got sick. Just a precaution. It fed to a wireless receiver in the attic. Melissa hated it, called it invasive, but I never got around to uninstalling it. That night, I climbed into the attic and found the receiver in an old shoebox beneath our father's army duffel. It was dusty, but it lit up the moment I plugged it in. The video files were fragmented but intact. I scrubbed through hours of mundane footage, blankets adjusted, television flicker, nurses passing by, but then I found it. The file was dated 14 days before Mom's death. Melissa stood beside the bed holding a clipboard. "Just sign here, Mom. You're tired. You don't want to deal with Kate anymore," she said softly. My mother, eyes dim but still aware, shook her head. "Why are you doing this?" Her voice was frail. Melissa leaned in, steadying her tone. "Because it's what's best." Then she pressed the pen into Mom's hand and helped her scrawl a name across the page. I watched it 3 times, then I saved it to 3 separate flash drives. The investigation was no longer theoretical. Now I had proof. I didn't go to the police, not yet. Cops deal in certainty, not ethics. I needed more than outrage. I needed a plan. What Melissa did wasn't just betrayal. It was methodical, institutional, and profitable. If I wanted justice, I had to think like a system, not a sister. And systems don't run on anger. They run on leverage. The first thing I did was contact Marcus Garland, a medical ethics attorney I'd worked with years ago during a hospice fraud audit in Maryland. He'd since become something of a crusader, known for taking on elder abuse cases against institutions that pretended to care. We met in a quiet booth at a seafood place near Cambridge. I laid out everything: hospice records, Medicare statements, property documents, and the video. He didn't blink. "You're not just dealing with your sister," he said. "You're dealing with a laundering loop, emotional access, medical billing, and asset extraction. It's more common than you think, but rarely this personal." He agreed to help. Quietly, at first. "We'll need to document every detail," he said. "Chain of custody for the video, full billing audits, get sworn testimony if you can." But Kate, he leaned in. "This will get ugly." I already knew that, so I began assembling what I needed. First, witnesses. I reached out to Diane again. This time, she brought a flash drive. Her personal shift log, saved out of habit. They showed inconsistencies in medication orders, missing initials, and conflicting timestamps. More than that, she agreed to testify, under subpoena if needed. "I'm done being afraid," she told me. "Your mom deserved better. So does every patient in that place." Second, documentation. I downloaded full copies of Mom's hospice intake forms, POA filings, and revised will. Garland referred me to a retired forensic document examiner named Janice Weller. After 2 days, she called me with results. "All signatures post-April 3rd are forgeries," she said flatly. "Simulated under influence, most likely with physical guidance." She was willing to write a formal report. That alone could open the door to a civil challenge of the will. Third, narrative. I needed the story to make sense not just legally, but emotionally. Garland coached me on framing. "Juries respond to arcs," he said. "They need to understand your mother was isolated, manipulated, drugged, but they also need to understand why you were pushed out and why you came back." So I began building a timeline. Emails, texts, rejected calls, the flowers returned, the recorded refusal at the hospice entrance. Every fracture had to be laid bare, and every scar had to speak. While Garland prepped civil filings, I worked another angle: exposure. My friend Nadine, an investigative journalist, ran a column on elder care exploitation. When I sent her redacted versions of the documents and the video stills, her response came in seconds. "Holy shit, I want this story." We agreed to wait until legal proceedings began, but she started backgrounding the hospice company and their parent firm. "You're not the only one," she said grimly. "This place has been mentioned in 3 other complaints. None made it past internal arbitration." Melissa, meanwhile, had no idea. She texted me twice, once to ask when I'd be vacating the Waltham house, once to request her name be kept off any funeral donations. I didn't reply. Silence, I'd learned, unnerves her more than confrontation. But she must have sensed something. 2 days later, I got a call from a blocked number, a clipped male voice. "You should stop digging. Let the dead rest." The line went dead. I recorded it, logged the time, and sent it to Garland. Intimidation, he confirmed. Document everything. We'll fold it into our claim. The next week, Garland filed a petition to freeze the distribution of Mom's estate pending fraud review. Simultaneously, he sent a formal letter of complaint to the Massachusetts Board of Bar Overseers, including notarized transcripts, the handwriting analysis, and a list of forged instruments bearing Melissa's name. Her license was now under scrutiny. I also sent an official tip to the Department of Health and Human Services Inspector General's office, flagging Newton's Serenity Hospice for suspected Medicare fraud. Using insider access and nursing credentials, I crafted the report in exact federal compliance format, procedure codes, billing patterns, corroborating entries. If they opened an audit, the hospice would face not just sanctions but federal investigation. I didn't want revenge. I wanted exposure, consequence. But still, something felt unfinished. One night, while cleaning out the basement, I found Mom's old journals. Most were benign, shopping lists, recipes. But near the back of one leather-bound notebook was an entry dated just 6 weeks before her death. The writing was shaky, but unmistakably hers. Melissa visits with smiles, but always at night. I feel like I'm forgetting things. Is it the pills? Or her voice? She says Kate is far away, that Kate doesn't love me. But I remember Kate's laugh, her hands. I remember war zones and jasmine tea. If I forget, who will fight for me? Stopped breathing. Then I copied the page and added it to the file. That was when Diane called. Her voice trembled. "Kate," she said, "I think someone's been following me." Diane's call changed everything. "Someone's been following me," she said, her voice shaking. "Silver SUV, tinted windows, 3 days in a row, parked outside my apartment. I don't know if it's connected, but..." I didn't let her finish. "Stay with your sister tonight and send me everything you have. We're reporting this now." Garland filed a police report that afternoon and copied the DA's office. "Intimidation of a witness," he said. "It's now criminal, not just civil." The police weren't quick to act, but the move forced everything into a higher gear. If they touched Diane, it would backfire legally and publicly. That's when I knew we had them nervous. The formal confrontation began 3 days later in a civil courtroom in Suffolk County. It was a preliminary hearing, no jury, just a judge to determine whether Mom's estate should be frozen pending further investigation. But Melissa showed up in full armor, tailored navy suit, high-end lawyer from a Boston firm, and that same practiced look of calm superiority she'd always worn during school recitals and family disputes. Her attorney tried to dismiss everything. Grief-induced projection, he argued, a strange daughter returning too late, lashing out. But Garland's voice cut through the room like glass. The only thing Kate Mallory is lashing out against is fraud, against the manipulation of a dying woman, against the exploitation of the vulnerable by someone who calls herself family. We played the nanny cam video. The room went still. Melissa shifted in her seat, her jaw clenched, but she didn't look surprised, just angry that she hadn't found the camera. Then came Diane's sworn testimony, the handwriting expert's affidavit, and the Medicare billing analysis. Each one stacked like bricks. Every time Melissa's lawyer opened his mouth, Garland had paper to bury him with. The judge didn't rule that day, but her face said enough. This court finds sufficient grounds to freeze all transfers of estate assets pending full evidentiary review. Melissa's calm cracked. She muttered something to her lawyer, then stormed out without making eye contact. 2 days later, Melissa's PR strategy kicked in. An anonymous post appeared on a local grief support blog accusing me of weaponizing grief for personal gain. Another blog painted me as a disgruntled military nurse with a savior complex. Nadine traced the source, a digital marketing firm Melissa had used before in real estate campaigns, but this time it backfired. When Nadine published her exposé, The Hospice That Hid the Truth, the post went viral. Comments flooded in from other families with eerily similar experiences at Newton Serenity. 3 separate whistleblowers contacted us, each with documents, one with internal emails showing efforts to plea patient families who won't interfere with final stage authorization, Translation: target the isolated ones. While Garland escalated legal filings, I made a move of my own. Using a nursing union contact, I arranged for a protest outside Newton Serenity. Staff, former employees, and families holding signs: care, not control. Hospice, not hostage. Diane stood next to me, holding my mother's photo. Her name was Mildred. She deserved better. The protest made the evening news. Under pressure, the Massachusetts Department of Public Health launched an emergency inspection. Violations were found: incomplete records, failure to maintain informed consent, evidence of altered logs. Simultaneously, the Board of Bar Overseers sent Melissa a notice of investigation. She posted a vague tweet: "When family turns on you during grief, you learn who you really are." The comments did not go the way she hoped. Then came her counterattack. Her attorney filed for a restraining order against me, claiming harassment and defamation. The hearing was fast-tracked, but Garland shredded it in court. "This isn't harassment, it's accountability, and your client isn't grieving, she's cornered." The judge agreed, dismissing the motion and warning Melissa's counsel to refrain from legal maneuvers that resemble intimidation. The final week was a blur of depositions. Melissa grew colder with each session. Her lawyer did what he could, but the walls were closing. Garland introduced the reverse mortgage document with expert handwriting analysis and the digital trail showing Melissa accessing Mom's Medicare portal multiple times per day, approving charges within minutes of each login. The hospice's corporate attorneys attempted to settle privately. We refused. I didn't want silence, I wanted truth. The final hearing was set: full civil trial for fraudulent conversion of assets, healthcare abuse, and coercive manipulation. A week before it began, the Department of Health and Human Services officially suspended Newton Serenity's Medicare billing privileges pending audit. The company's board forced the administrator to resign. Nadine ran the story on the front page. National syndicates picked it up. CNN called. Melissa disappeared from public view. Her condo went up for sale. Former friends unfollowed her. Her LinkedIn quietly changed to "on sabbatical." But for me, the battle wasn't over. I still had to sit through the last hearing. I sat in the front row, Garland beside me, Diane one seat over. Across the aisle, Melissa stared ahead blankly, no lawyer at her side. She was representing herself now. Her firm had dropped her the moment the bar investigation opened. The judge shuffled the papers, cleared her throat, and began to read. The judge's voice was steady as she delivered the verdict. This court finds sufficient evidence of undue influence, medical fraud, and financial coercion. The revised will is declared void. Control of the estate reverts to the petitioner, Kate Mallory. Melissa didn't speak. She sat still, jaw locked, the flush on her cheeks the only sign of life. Within a week, the Waltham house was back in my name. The Beacon Hill condo was frozen under court order pending restitution review. The Bar Association suspended Melissa's license indefinitely, and the Department of Health revoked Newton Serenity's hospice certification. Within a month, the facility shut down. The story rippled outward. Medicare launched a broader audit across associated hospice centers. Garland received 2 new client calls from families in other states with similar stories. Diane was offered a position on a state ethics oversight board. As for me, I stood alone in the living room of my mother's house, surrounded by silence. But for the first time in months, it didn't feel like absence. It felt like peace. In the months that followed, I didn't return to hospice work, not right away. I took long walks through Waltham's autumn streets, sorted through my mother's journals, and let the silence of the house speak again. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt grounded. Something had closed, not in violence, but with dignity. Eventually, I launched the Mildred Foundation, a small nonprofit offering legal and emotional support to families navigating end-of-life care. Diane joined as Director of Advocacy, Garland offered pro bono guidance, and when Nadine's story aired nationally, we received over 100 letters from people who'd suspected but never had the tools to fight back. I used to believe grief was something you carried alone, but now I know it becomes lighter when turned into something useful. into purpose. Mom once wrote, "If I forget, who will fight for me?" I answered that question, and now I help others answer it for themselves.